Today's video is about another dry mix that you can make up ahead of time and keep on your pantry shelf. I've started a playlist where I intend on adding dry mixes to that playlist, and it's dry mixes that I use. I want to first start off with letting you know that all videos that I do with recipes is a recipe that I personally use in my kitchen. I am not going to research and look up recipes online and do them just for the sake of being able to do a video. It will always be a recipe that I use, whether I have gotten it from some source and I've used it over the years, or it's just something that I just throw together myself. It's going to always be something that I have implemented in my kitchen and I use and have used many times and that I like. I'm not going to just roll out videos of recipes that I find online. I want you to always be able to count on it is something that I personally use. If it's something I have done a video on in the garden or pertaining to my animals, it is something that I do in my real life. So I just want you to put that out there. This particular recipe, actually I'm going to do two. One is my chicken seasoning that I have made up through the years and used. And then second, which kind of goes along with chicken, is poultry. It is a poultry seasoning. It is a homemade poultry seasoning. I did find a combination years ago of poultry mixes, and I have fine-tuned it through the years to the way that I like it. But with Thanksgiving next week, I thought this would be a good time to put this video out. Before you go shopping, if you haven't already gone shopping for your ingredients, let me tell you, first of all, seasonings from the store are DOA, dead on arrival. They are already old and bland by the time that you buy them. But if you can learn to make up your own seasonings using your own ingredients, you're going to get a more potent seasoning mix. And this poultry seasoning is very potent, which means you're just going to use a small amount. However, you're going to have a good poultry mix to keep on your shelf. And poultry seasoning in those tiny little containers are expensive in my opinion for something that doesn't even have good flavor. I have found in my experience, when I have used the store-bought, I have to shake and put a lot so that I can taste it. That's not going to be the case with this mix that I'm going to show you today. So let's get started. This is my jar of poultry seasoning that I've already made up sometime this past year. I might have even made it up after last year's Thanksgiving dinner. It's probably showing backwards on the camera. But anyways, this right here, this amount is going to last me a very long time. I cook with poultry seasoning a lot. I put it in, all things poultry, and I use it at the holidays. But I'm gonna do this in a separate jar because I want you to see how it looks once it's been put together. And when this is over with, I'll just dump this in the jar. This was a bulk mix, B-U-L-K. I know that sounded funny coming out of my mouth. Anyways, this was a bulk mix. This is going to be a single mix, but it's going to make a lot because you don't use much poultry seasoning. Poultry seasoning is very strong, and I'm just going to show, one serving of the mix, and I'm going to tell you how you can get it in, make it in bulk. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to put it in this clean jar. This is actually a jar of pork chop seasoning that I make up, and I'm out, so I need to make this up again. fill this jar up. But for today, I'm just going to use this clean jar to make this seasoning in, and then I'll put it in this one. I will put the full recipe down in the description for both the single serving and to make a bulk mix like this, and it'll be down in the description below. The first thing I'm going to add is my sage. I'm going to use 1.5 teaspoons of sage. I've already got all of my ingredients pre-measured. I'm going to use 1.5 teaspoons of thyme. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of oregano. I'm going to use 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary. I'm going to use 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of celery seed, and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. That is it. Mix it up, just get it blended really well. A lot of times when you buy your poultry seasoning, you buy it in these little containers. This is a nutmeg container, but they're all pretty much the same. And you're going to get almost this amount that you would have purchased at the store as a single serving. And it'll last a little bit because you're just going to use a little at a time. But it's probably not going to last past one Thanksgiving meal or one Christmas meal. It might not even make it to that, but this is the single serving, the measurements and ingredients. Now I make it in bulk, and so I use 1/2 cups, 1/4 cups, and things like that to make this up. This bulk recipe will make about 3/4 cup. It's sticking a little bit in there. It's approximately 3/4 cup, but that is a lot when it comes to poultry seasoning, especially because when you use it, you're just going to use a little, I call it a smidgen. It's less than a pinch at a time. You're going to do a pinch here and a pinch there, and you're going to taste it, and you're going to just keep adding as you need it per your taste buds. Given the fact that this is very potent, very strong, it's not going to be as mild as what you would buy in the store. It's very, very strong. I can't say that enough. The first time that I ever made it, I almost choked because I used the typical dump a couple tablespoons into my cornbread dressing. I ruined it because I overdid it. And I have learned, I learned real quick actually, a little dab will do you. So that is a very simple recipe. Let me get this other jar. That is a very simple recipe to make your homemade poultry seasoning. And with the recipe that I put down below, if you choose to try it, if you've never made your own, you can double it or triple all of the ingredients. Here's another thing. You can add more or add less of each ingredient. You're not going to mess it up. Play with it. Decide what is best for your taste buds. You may like less sage. You may want more sage. It is okay to play with it and make it your own. These are all the base ingredients for poultry seasoning. It's up to you really what the measurements are. Add more or less. Create your own, and you will never look back at a store-bought brand. Now, I'm just going to add all of that into the jar I already worked from. This is my working jar in my pantry of poultry seasoning, and I'm just going to add that to it. And I'm going to blend it in. And I have enough poultry seasoning to last me a very, very long time. I do not have to make this very often because it goes so far. That's a lot of poultry seasoning. Let me point something out. This is homegrown paprika. It is a medium flavor. This is store-bought paprika. No flavor. A lot of coloring. If you can see the difference, the paprika peppers started out as bright red. When you dehydrate them and grind them up, they become like this orangey red, and that's normal. Mine has a little brown tone to it. It's kind of dumbed down because I threw in some green paprika peppers that had not matured to the red stage yet. I did that because we had a frost coming and I didn't want to lose them, so I just ground those up in with this. The store-bought paprika is very, very dark cinnamony color. That's because they add a lot of color to it, you know, the dyes, but there's no flavor. If you put this on something or taste it in a spoon, there is no flavor. That is because it is old from the get-go when you get it off the shelf. Plus it has all those additives. This is homegrown and it has a lot of flavor. It is spicy. Not hot like cayenne, but it is a mild to medium spice. It will give things a little kick. I love kick on my French fries or home potatoes, like breakfast potatoes, fried chicken, pork chops, so I like to use that. But I wanted to point out the differences between store-bought and the homegrown. And the reason I chose the paprika is because this next recipe that I'm going to share with you uses paprika. This is my chicken seasoning that I'm going to do fried chicken, and it is delicious. That's all I can say. It is delicious. It adds so much flavor to fried chicken. And I go through this like a crazy person. I really do. I'm refilling my jars all the time. So let me turn you around and share this recipe. Okay, I'm doing this a little bit different this time. I have all of the jars lined up so you can see what I'm using. But I've also, behind the jars, I have my measurements already measured out. That is just to save some time. I'm using the same jar that I used earlier. This is my pork chop jar, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just mixing it up in here. All right, to start with, I have 1 cup of garlic salt. Now you can use garlic powder and accommodate that with the amount of salt that you want. But I have garlic salt on hand, so I'm just doing the combo deal here and just using garlic salt. So I'm going to omit the salt from this recipe, but it can be between a half a tablespoon of salt to several tablespoons of salt, depending on how much salt you want in your recipe. But I'm starting with garlic salt. And to this jar, I am going to add 2 teaspoons, pre-measured, of paprika. And this is my homegrown paprika. And it has a little bit of a kick. I'm going to add, this is, the next in line is ground mustard. 1 teaspoon of ground mustard. This is my basil, and I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of basil. The next is onion powder. I'm going to add 1½ teaspoons of onion powder. Then next is thyme. This is going to be a ½ teaspoon of thyme. Next in line is cumin, and this is 1 teaspoon of cumin. And then pepper, whether you use powdered, ground, whatever kind of black pepper that you want to use. I use 4 teaspoons. And sometimes I go back and I add a little more. Now, this is kind of stuffed very tight. I'm going to get me a bowl and mix it all up in the bowl and then put it back in the jar. Well, it's not going to go in this jar. It's going to go in my jar for chicken, which is here. This is my working jar, but I think I'm going to have to get a bigger jar because I still have some left right here, so that's not going to all fit. I just got a clean jar here, and I'm just going to pour all of this in here. This is the jar I should have started with. What I normally do is make this up in a double batch, and I put it in one of these size jars, but I didn't do that today. And then I just pour out of it into this little jar that I keep by the stove, and that's my working jar. I'm just mixing this up with the back end of a measuring spoon. Now I'm going to get a lid, and I'm just going to put this plastic lid on and roll this around and shake it up until it's mixed really good. There we go. Now every time I make chicken, whether it's baked chicken or fried chicken, then I'm going to sprinkle this kind of heavy on my chicken before I cook it. If it's fried chicken, I put it on before I do the flour batter or the chicken batter. I use a chicken batter. And if I'm going to put it in the oven for baked chicken, then I'm just going to sprinkle it on there and put it in the oven for baked. This is a really delicious recipe, and this can go on the shelf, and it is shelf stable, but it's ready whenever you need it. Instead of standing at a tray full of chicken and having to individually sprinkle out all of your seasonings, this is a one sprinkle deal. I actually, let me get the lid. I actually just keep a lid on here that I can shake it out, and this stays right by my stove, and I use this and refill this from the larger jar. As I have said in prior videos, I am all about saving some steps, even if it just saves me 5 minutes. I love saving steps. I love keeping these kind of dry mixes on my shelf ready at hand when I need them. That way I can just blaze through cooking and grab one jar or one mix, and it's ready to go instead of me having to use all these individual spices and mixes. Well, that's it for this video. If you have not yet made up your own mixes, I hope you will start doing it, because it really is a time saver. And with, as I've said already, Thanksgiving next week, now is the time to put your pre-mixes, together and have them ready, because there's so much cooking. It's like a cooking marathon. Who has time to pre-mix all these things in that moment? And a good poultry seasoning is great to have on hand, because we use a lot of poultry seasoning during the Thanksgiving cooking. And if you haven't, try it. Let me know in the comments section at any time down the road if you tried it. Let me know if you liked it. Don't forget that these recipes that I have given you can be customized. Less salt, more salt. Less thyme, more thyme. Less basil, more basil. Make it your own. Just make it. You know, get it made, use it. Now, if you have a favorite poultry seasoning or a favorite chicken seasoning mix that you think is absolutely delicious, please share it in the comment section. If it's a recipe, everybody don't like to share recipes, but if it's a recipe that you like to share, please do. I'm all for learning more. Might be an ingredient that should be in it that I haven't thought of. Pre-making your own mixes is really that simple. Just a few ingredients, dry ingredients, in the jar on the shelf. I sure hope you liked this video, and I hope that it was helpful for you. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell and subscribe to my channel. That way you can be notified when a new video is uploaded. Until I see you on the next video, I hope that y'all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.